a psychologist conversation. Let's sit together for a moment. I want to ask you something simple and honest. Have you ever thought, my best years are behind me? I hear that a lot from people in their 70s. A quiet resignation, a polite acceptance of smaller days. If you're listening now, I'd like you to try a different question instead. What small choice might open a new chapter for you? Over the next several minutes, as I would in a clinic room, I'll tell 5 stories of people who deliberately experimented with that question after age 70. I'll speak with you the way I speak with patients, with curiosity, practical steps, and gentle challenge. After each story, I'll share what I noticed, why it mattered psychologically, and a short exercise you can take away. These are not dramatic fairy tales. They're incremental, human changes, built from tiny acts repeated over time. If one of these stories lands like a quiet nudge, hold on to it. I'll ask you at the end to share which story moved you and one tiny step you'll try. There's no pressure, only invitation. Story 1, Margaret. Finding painting at 72, therapist, patient dialogue plus analysis. Therapist. When your husband died, what did that feel like in your day-to-day life? Margaret. Softly empty, like the house kept his shape, but not his voice. I wandered through rooms and didn't know what to do with my time. Therapist. If you could give yourself permission to try one small thing, purely for curiosity, what would it be? Margaret. I always liked postcards as a girl. Sometimes I think I'd like to make something beautiful again, but I feel silly. That feeling silly is common and important. I encourage Margaret to try one art class, with the only rule being no expectation of skill, only the promise of showing up for 1 hour twice a week. She agreed reluctantly. At her first class, she cried while painting a simple teacup. The tears weren't failure. They were memory and release. Over months, painting became a ritual, a way to tend grief and cultivate presence. Clinical reflection, in simple language. Grief can narrow life into routines that protect but also isolate. A creative practice is a form of behavioral activation, doing an activity to shift mood and create new associations. The key was low stakes plus repetition. Margaret didn't aim to become an artist. She aimed to be present once or twice a week. That permission to be a beginner lowered the barrier to starting. Practical exercise for viewers. Pick one small creative experiment. A 45 to 60-minute class, an online tutorial, or a sketchbook exercise. Bring one object that matters to you, a cup, a scarf, a photograph. Use it as a subject. After each session, write one sentence. Today I noticed, repeat for 6 weeks. Prompt for reflection. Say this to your camera or journal. What would it mean to give myself permission to be imperfect for 1 hour this week? Story 2, James. Love and connection at 78, therapist, patient dialogue plus analysis. Therapist. You said you felt that companionship was closed to you. Can you tell me what the thought felt like in your body? James. Quietly, it makes me tuck in. I stop reaching out. I tell myself it's safer that way. In therapy, James and I explore belief. I'm too old for new attachments. We tested it gently. He accepted a community tea invitation. He met Helen there. They chatted about small, safe topics at first. Their favorite garden flowers, books they loved. Over months, the conversations broadened. They navigated awkward practicalities, visiting family, financial routines, slowly and honestly. Clinical reflection. After loss, many people default protective thinking. Better to be safe than hurt again. But avoidance often leads to loneliness and reduced vitality. Cognitive reframing helped. We practice alternative thoughts like, I can allow new joy without erasing what I loved before. This doesn't speed grief. It makes room for a different kind of warmth. Practical exercise. Make one low-pressure social commitment this month. A book club, church tea, or neighborhood potluck. Use a simple conversation starter. What's a small thing that made you smile this week? It invites warmth without heavy disclosure. If nervous, rehearse the opening line in front of a mirror twice. Prompt for reflection. What would it feel like to let curiosity lead one conversation this week, instead of worry? Story 3, David. From pain to marathon walker at 74, therapist, Patient dialogue plus analysis. Therapist. When you think about exercise, what's the first word that comes to mind? David. Pain. I tell myself I can't. I'm scared of failing. We use a different approach. Small, measurable steps, micro goals, and a focus on bodily feedback rather than achievement. David began with 5-minute walks, 3 times a week. We tracked them. When a walk felt better, we noted it. If pain spiked, we adapted. The small wins accumulated into a daily rhythm. Months later, with appropriate medical guidance, David walked longer distances, joined a charity walk, and eventually completed a marathon route by walking. He framed it as proof I can still choose my body story. Clinical reflection. This is behavioral activation, matched with pacing and self-compassion. Fear of failure is legitimate, especially with chronic pain. The trick is scaffolding. Tiny steps plus consistent monitoring plus encouragement. Social support, a walking buddy, was crucial. It turned practice into belonging. Practical exercise. Start a 14-day walking experiment. Day 1 is equal 5 minutes. Day 2 is equal to 7 minutes. Increase by 2 to 3 minutes every third day as it feels comfortable. Keep a single line log. Time walked, how it felt 0 to 10. If you have medical concerns, call your clinician for a quick safety check before increasing activity. Prompt for reflection. What small movement could you add to your day that wouldn't feel like exercise but might feel good? Story for Linda. Teaching again through a community garden at 80. Therapist. Patient dialogue plus analysis. Therapist. After you retired, what did you miss most? Linda. The feeling that what I did mattered. My days felt empty. Rather than wait for purpose to return to her naturally, Linda created it. She cleared an overgrown lot and invited neighbors to plant with her. The garden became a classroom. Children learned about seasons. Teenagers earned volunteer hours. Elders shared recipes. Linda's identity as a teacher simply shifted form. Clinical reflection. Erik Erikson called the stage generativity, the desire to contribute to the next generation. When people find ways to give, their mood and sense of meaning often improve. The garden served 3 therapeutic functions: social connection, structured activity, and visible impact. Practical exercise. Identify one small public need in your neighborhood. A bench, a littered spot, a bench that could use painting. Commit 1 hour a week for 6 weeks. Invite one person. Keep a shared notebook in the space for small notes. Planted, watered, thanks. It makes progress visible. Prompt for reflection. If you could teach one small thing to someone younger, what would it be? How might you start? Story 5, Robert. Finishing school at 82. Therapist. Patient dialogue plus analysis. Therapist. What has the regret of not finishing college felt like over the years? Robert. Like a quiet itch. Not urgent, but always there. Robert chose to address that itch. He enrolled in a single community college course. He asked his granddaughter to help with basic computer tasks, joined study groups, and honored the small embarrassment of being the oldest student in the room. At graduation, at 85, he described the moment as a promise to myself finally kept. Clinical reflection. Unfinished dreams can weigh more than we expect. Addressing them often improves self-respect and reduces simmering regret. Practical supports, technology help, study partners, remove logistical barriers and make the goal achievable. Practical exercise. Name one unfinished thing. Write the smallest possible first step. Call admissions. Read one syllabus page. Ask one person to be your accountability partner for check-ins. Allow for slow pacing. Learning is not a race. Prompt for reflection. What's one small promise to yourself you can start keeping this week? The threads that tie these stories together. Simple psychological explanation. Let's step back. Notice the shared ingredients across each story. Small experiments. None of these people leaped into a radical new life overnight. They tried, repeated, and adjusted. Change often comes from tiny commitments repeated over weeks. Social scaffolding. A neighbor, a classmate, a spouse, a walking buddy. Each story had at least one person who helped sustain momentum. Humans change best with others. Permission to be imperfect. Each person allowed themselves to be a beginner again, which reduced the anxiety that often blocks starting. Meaning through doing. Purpose came from action. Painting, walking, gardening, studying, not from an abstract decision alone. Doing reshaped identity. Compassionate pacing. They respected their limits, but didn't let limits become excuses. Psychologically, these are all forms of rebuilding agency. The belief that your choices matter and can lead to change. Agency grows when we take manageable risks, get small wins, and connect with others who notice. A practical 6-week plan you can try, detailed, step by step. Week 0. Preparation, single hour. Pick one area you'd like to experiment with: creativity, movement, connection, purpose, learning. Write one measurable micro goal, e.g., attend one painting class this week. Walk 10 minutes 3 times this week. Call the community college for course info. Identify one helper, a friend, family member, neighbor, or staff at a local center. Weeks 1 to 2, start small and track. Do the activity twice in week 1, 3 times in week 2. Keep a 1-line log after each session. What I did, one feeling. If fear or doubt arises, name it. Say to yourself, I notice I'm afraid of ... Naming reduces power. Weeks 3 to 4, build routine and invite others. Add one social element. Invite someone to join once, or share your progress with a neighbor. If physical fatigue appears, schedule rest days. Practice the if-then coping plan. If I feel discouraged, then I'll call my accountability partner for a 5-minute pep talk. Weeks 5 to 6, reflect and scale carefully. Review your log. Celebrate small wins, even if the big goal wasn't achieved. Decide on one next step. Continue at the same pace. Increase one session or add a small challenge. Submit a painting to a local fair. Enroll in a second course. Tools to use: a simple pocket notebook, a calendar reminder, a 5-minute daily journaling habit, an accountability text group. When things get hard, practice self-compassion. This is painful, but I'm trying. I can take one small step. If mood or anxiety deepen for more than 2 weeks, consider consulting a mental health professional. What family, friends, or caregivers can do: brief guidance. Offer gentle invitations rather than pressure. Would you like to come with me to community fair? Help with logistics. Ride to a class. Show how to use a phone. Sit with them while they call. Validate feelings. I hear you're scared. I also see your courage. Validation lowers shame and increases willingness to try. Closing reflection. A therapist's invitation to the viewer. Before we finish, I want to ask you 3 short questions. You can answer them in the comments or in your journal. Which story felt closest to you? The painter, the partner, the walker, the gardener, or the student? What is one micro step you can try in the next 7 days? Make it tiny. It should feel doable. Who could you invite to be your accountability partner for that step? If you found these conversations helpful, please leave a comment below. Tell us which story moved you, and share one small step you'll try. If this video warmed you or gave you an idea, click like and subscribe. It helps this channel keep making gentle, practical content. Share with a friend who thinks it's too late. Because sometimes late is simply the moment we finally choose ourselves. Thank you for sitting with me. If you're carrying grief, loneliness, or a quiet regret, remember this. Change at any age usually begins with one small, brave experiment. Be gentle with yourself. You don't have to do everything at once. You only have to try one small thing with curiosity.